teachers who regularly get invited to high school reunions. What are the most amazing transformations, common patterns, epic stories, saddest declines you've seen through the years? My grandpa invited his English teacher from high school to their 60th HS reunion. She was 97 at the time, 101 now, and is sharp as a tack. She had a wonderful time seeing everyone and even remembered a good portion of her students, but did mention that it was disheartening to see students of hers who have died or are suffering from dementia. Half my grade didn't even get invited to our 10-year. Seems just like the popular kids just invited themselves. I saw pictures of my class's 10-year. It was the same 6-7 friends that haven't left town and hang out all the time went to a baseball game. That was it. Common patterns at the 10-year reunion. They all show up with the intention to impress. Fancy clothes are the norm. Many women look as if they went to the salon to have their hair styled. Spouses are primped in a similar fashion, and also brought to the reunion. By the next reunion, usually the class has lost at least one person unexpectedly, so there is always the tribute table and the mood is more about reminiscing about old times than trying to impress each other. Dress is usually more casual and less presence of spouses, unless they are graduates of the same high school. I went to my 15-year reunion last autumn. Biggest difference was a kid-friendly venue time because so many people had little toddlers. I expect that trend will continue for the 20-year one. So, not a teacher and only been to one school reunion after about 15-20 years. We got in contact via Friends United, if anyone remembers that, and I was chatting with a couple of people in the weeks leading up to the reunion. I was making jokes about seeing a girl Carol who everyone wanted to be friends with. Making jokes about how she was a flirt and probably had been through a couple of husbands by now, when someone informed me that she had died of cancer at age 20. Once at the reunion, I asked whatever happened to Gary L. Gary was a joker. He was friends with everyone and, somehow, able to fit in with all the different factions at school. I was told that good old Gary was in prison, on multiple counts of possession of CP. I missed my 10 years reunion, but I went to 15 years. As some said, most people came to impress others. I don't care. I was there to see a guy I was friends with in school. He was a very intelligent dude, but clearly had a problem with authorities. When we got older, he worked as a chemist and also liked drugs. Back in the days, he used to smoke pot regularly, but he found other friends and things for worse, like cooking meth and get your door kicked in weekly by cops or Russians worse. Last thing I heard, he went to jail for a couple of years. When I met him at the reunion, he was also happy to see me. We talked almost the whole evening. It was great. What I liked the most, he found a wife when he got out of jail. She supported him to get rid of an heroin addiction he got in jail, and he is a proud father of 2 kids. Nice transformation. I'll share an uplifting one. It was at my class's 10-year reunion. One of the people who showed up was, well, to put it bluntly, I had never thought much of them when graduation happened. They just kind of coasted through. Had been a bully when they were younger. Definitely didn't take class seriously, not that I ever saw, etc. They didn't go on to be a CEO or something. Anyone can do that. No. Instead they got married, found responsibility, and now had several kids. They were raising a family and trying to be a good parent and spouse. They'd found work they enjoyed and that paid well so they could support that family with a good life. And then, they went up to people at that reunion who they recalled setting an example or giving them a template to build on and thank them for it. It left me dumbstruck. That takes humility and strength. That is an epic transformation. From just someone who was there probably because they had to be to someone who'd found their being. I was really glad to hear they were doing so well, and see how much they'd changed. I don't ever expect to come back at the 20 and see them running some giant company or anything. But I expect I'll respect them just as highly, probably a bit more, honestly. Not a teacher, but there was a really remarkable transformation in mine. There was a kid in my high school who was, for lack of a better term, a huge F up. Lots of drugs, really overweight, constantly getting suspended, getting in fights, trouble with the law, etc. So I show up to my 10-year reunion, and there is this guy there that nobody recognizes. Tall, long hair, muscular, pretty good looking, It's the same guy. Literally none of us could picture him, so he had to show us old photos on his phone. He told me that after high school he got a job cleaning pools, which saved his life according to him. It was really tough work which got him in shape and helped him kick his addiction and gave him a purpose. Eventually he started his own pool cleaning business and has since expanded it enough that he makes fantastic money and doesn't even work 40 hours a week, and it's still growing. It sounded like he had some demons to work through, but he literally went from being somebody we all kinda expected to spend his life in jail, to arguably being the best looking guy at the reunion, making more money than almost anyone there, and just having a huge turnaround. Probably the biggest talk of the night, and honestly, I think everyone was really impressed. I know I was. He deserved all the kudos he got. I was one of the valedictorians and got voted most likely to become president. I dated the same guy most of the way through high school and married him in college. 10 years down the way, I was divorced and on disability for mental illness. I was actually afraid to go to the reunion because things were totally different. I don't know why, but I seriously thought people would think bad of me for getting a divorce. Our school did something interesting for the reunion. One part was a formal sit-down dinner that cost something like $80, but another part was a free BBQ down at the local park. I went to the freebie. Everyone was pretty casual. Very few of the former popular crowd came. Guess they just wanted to show off at the formal dinner. Lots of other people there had been honors students and had also gotten the harsh smack in the face by life. Lots of the valedictorians and honors students failed out of college by sophomore year. I know a couple of them had gone through rehab. I was surprised to find I wasn't the only one who was mentally ill. We'd all apparently been really good at hiding it in high school. A lot of people got into fields no one would have pegged them for. The shyest girl worked as a farmer rep. Scrawny dorky kid was now absolutely ripped and in the military. I'd been known as a writer and journalist, but I know several people were surprised to hear I'd primarily worked as a computer tech, so I'd worked myself up for nothing. I was glad I went. I'm guessing the school didn't bother to do anything for 20th or 25th, or maybe the former popular kids decided having a free event again was gauche. I know that this is a reach out to teachers, but I want to do a shout out to a teacher. I attended only my 20th year reunion in 1999, and only because I had to return home to my family because my stepmother was dying. I had left town the day after graduation and never looked back. A math teacher who taught calculus and coached football was so amazing in our school and our community that the whole town had created a day devoted to him and named it Garvin Day. He was retiring that year. He was a man of quiet intensity. I remember his catching me and some friends smoking in the boiler room and he looked at each of us intently. I don't think that's very smart to smoke in here. I'd have thought y'all were smarter than this. It was a Catholic college prep school with very strict rules that had any other teacher caught us, we would have been expelled. Coach Garvin had such patience in his ways, and he worked every angle to get us to understand math. He listened, and when he spoke to each one of us. So on the day I roll up to the school, there was a line the whole length of the football field to say hey to Coach Garvin. I couldn't wait to see him, although I doubted he'd remember little Olaney after 20 years. It took me almost an hour to hear him speak my name, as he had spoken each other name of every one of us in that line. I imagine. How have you been? What have you been doing? You still smoking? We just had our 20-year reunion a few months ago and it was honestly great. Most people showed up, plus a few of the teachers. We've always been a relative unpretentious bunch with everyone somewhat getting along, and it was still sort of like that. We all sort of clicked right away, and we basically had no unexpected transformations, neither positive nor negative. The ones who were expected to pick up a high-rolling career did, and the ones expected to surf along in the mid-class did as well. There were a few outliers, like the cool skateboarding bloke who wasn't really good in school was now a medical doctor with family and kids. But all in all, it had all turned out more or less as expected. On paper that sounds horrifically boring, but in reality it was incredibly nice to see everyone had made something of themselves and you'd still get along, even after 20 years. My school has one every year for all classes, so sometimes parents and children will go together and sometimes even grandparents. My one friend went, and from what I've heard the only people there graduated before 95. None of the younger generations showed up save a few who were just curious to see what it is. It's all Karens and 40 to 50-year-old men who pretend like they all graduated a few years ago. The same type of people who constantly brag about that one game where they won the season and talk about nothing else. And middle-aged suburban housewives trying to sell MLMs while asking to speak to the coach of their son's little league team to get him more time on the field. Didn't get invited to my 5-year or my 10-year, actually happening in 2 months. I got arrested for doing something real stupid my freshman year of college, spent a year in jail and 3 more on probation. And then when I reached out to the alumni organizing the 5-year, they told me I would not be allowed into the event if I showed up. When I asked why, they said it's just best if you don't come. The few friends I still had from high school tried to convince the organizers otherwise, but by then I had said I didn't want to go anyway, so they let it drop. I totally lied. I wish with all my heart that I could go, and it's one of the worst feelings I ever felt, being told that I couldn't. Facebook ruined class reunions for me, so I quit Facebook. It was like a class reunion every effing day. So not a teacher, just giving my story of my 10-year reunion from 2 years ago. One girl in high school had uncut hair to the floor, giant skirts, some religious thing. Her dad was an a-hole, and his girlfriend wore tight shirts and short skirts with spray-on tan and cheap blonde hair dye. Absolute definition of hypocritical a-hole parents. The son brother was treated like a king and had absolutely no parenting, all while the girl and her 2 sisters were taught to do all the chores and take care of the dad girlfriend brother. She grew up to be a religious nut job that went further down that rabbit hole and believed that blowing up abortion clinics is totally cool. She hasn't done it yet, but she's rather vocal about it. She sat next to everyone at some point in the reunion and tried to figure out what political affiliation everyone was to start fights. One guy that never took anything seriously went to some branch of the military and got his life together. He's a car mechanic now and is a much nicer guy. And then me. I was a quiet nerd girl and still am. Except I came into the parklet on my motorcycle, which I had for a while but didn't think was a big deal. And everyone thought it was a huge deal that nerdy me rode motorcycles now. I have a cheap one and it wasn't hard to learn. Apparently being able to hold normal conversations, which I could do before, and riding a motorcycle was a huge transformation. I think everyone thought I was somehow shy or weird when I was just quiet and didn't want to talk to them when I was a teenager. So having polite conversation from me blew their minds.